For more than 70 years, governments, public health agencies, and dental associations have repeated the same message: fluoride is safe. Fluoride is essential. Fluoride protects your teeth. Fluoride saves money. Fluoride is one of the greatest public health achievements of the 20th century. But what if this story was never based on real science? What if it began somewhere else, far from medical schools, far from dentistry, far from any concern for human health? What if the true origin of fluoride in drinking water began inside industrial factories, Cold War chemical labs, and secret military files stamped classified? Tonight, we dig into the buried record. Tonight, we expose what was never meant to reach the public. Tonight, we open the Fluoride Deception. Before fluoride touched the first drop of public water, it was already infamous. Among industrial chemists, fluoride was known not as a nutrient, not as a medicine, but as one of the most dangerous and difficult industrial pollutants ever produced. Industries that depended on high-temperature processes, aluminum smelting, steel production, phosphate fertilizer manufacturing, released enormous amounts of fluoride compounds into the air. These compounds settled onto farms, into streams, into the lungs of workers, into the food of entire communities. In the early 1900s, farmers living near these factories began reporting effects so severe they sounded like scenes from a toxic disaster movie. Crops curled and died. Animals' teeth crumbled into dust. Horses refused to eat. Chickens were born with deformities. Cows fractured bones simply by stepping into a ditch. Lawsuits exploded. Farmers dragged factories to court. Entire communities demanded answers. And under oath, major industrial companies admitted that fluoride emissions were their biggest and most expensive pollution problem. At the time, fluoride was classified as a poison even in small doses. Children who accidentally ingested early fluoridated pesticides often collapsed with seizures. Workers exposed to airborne fluoride developed skeletal fluorosis, bones so brittle they could snap from routine movements. Nothing about fluoride suggested health. Everything about it suggested danger. Then came World War II. And with it, came the Manhattan Project, the secret U.S. program tasked with building the world's first atomic bombs. The Manhattan Project needed aluminum. It needed uranium. It needed fluoride compounds. Fluoride was essential for producing the uranium used in nuclear weapons. But the more fluoride the government produced, the more communities got sick, the more crops were damaged, the more reports of poisoned livestock flooded in. The U.S. military suddenly had a massive problem: fluoride exposure could jeopardize the entire nuclear weapons program. If the public discovered the truth, lawsuits could halt production, slow bomb development, and expose dangerous weaknesses in the project. So instead of investigating how to protect the public, the U.S. government began studying how to protect itself from liability. And this is the turning point, the moment when fluoride stopped being an industrial threat and became a public benefit. Enter Dr. Harold Hodge. Hodge was not a dentist. He was the chief toxicologist of the Manhattan Project. His early research documented fluoride's profound toxicity, damage to the brain, disruption of the thyroid, brittle bones, and even dental erosion. His team found fluoride accumulated in the hippocampus, the brain's memory center. It interfered with calcium metabolism, disrupted enzymes involved in hormone conversion, and caused irreversible skeletal changes. Early drafts of Hodge's research, discovered decades later, revealed warnings so severe they should have immediately halted all public exposure to fluoride. But those documents were quietly classified, locked away, hidden from public view. Meanwhile, new sanitized studies were created. Studies that downplayed risk. Studies that celebrated fluoride as a cavity fighter. Studies funded by the same industries producing fluoride waste. And these new studies formed the foundation of modern dental policy. As fluoridation expanded, something strange happened. Dentists were encouraged, sometimes pressured, to support fluoride without question. Medical schools never taught the history of fluoride, only the approved narrative. Public health agencies repeated slogans written decades earlier. Anyone who questioned fluoride was dismissed as uninformed or unscientific. But science, real science, has a way of resurfacing. By the 1990s, independent researchers began publishing studies showing fluoride's effects on the brain, reduced IQ in children, increased oxidative stress, altered neurotransmitter levels, and higher rates of neurodevelopmental disorders. Environmental Health Perspectives published crucial findings confirming fluoride neurotoxicity, DOI, 10.1289/EP.11049112. Then came the 2019 JAMA pediatric study, one of the most rigorous ever conducted on fluoride exposure. Even at levels considered safe by government standards, fluoride exposure during pregnancy was linked to significant reductions in childhood IQ. DOI, 10.1010/JAMAPediatrics.2019.1729. This study sent shockwaves around the world. But instead of revising public health recommendations, health agencies doubled down, insisting fluoride was still safe. But they weren't telling the whole story. Because fluoride doesn't only affect the brain, it affects the bones, the teeth, and the endocrine system. Fluoride has a very specific chemical characteristic: it competes with calcium. Inside bones and teeth, the mineral hydroxyapatite should form strong, resilient crystal structures. But fluoride replaces calcium in those crystals, forming fluorapatite, a substance harder, but more brittle. A substance more likely to chip and fracture. Occupational and environmental medicine confirmed that fluoride exposure increases bone fracture risk and disrupts thyroid hormone conversion. DOI, 10.1136/OEM.2007.0357882. Fluoride accumulates in bones for decades. It cannot be excreted once embedded. Over time, this accumulation contributes to skeletal fluorosis, joint pain, stiffness, bone deformities, early arthritis, and increased fracture likelihood. From an integrative medical perspective, bone health depends on hormones. Thyroid hormones regulate turnover. Progesterone and estradiol influence density. Vitamin D controls absorption. Vitamin K2 directs calcium. Magnesium supports structure. Fluoride throws this entire system out of balance. Now let's address the central claim: does fluoride prevent cavities? The answer, according to modern research, is far more complex than the public has been told. Cavities do not come from a fluoride deficiency. Cavities come from metabolic inflammation, microbiome imbalance, nutritional deficiencies, low saliva quality, vitamin D deficiency, poor mineralization, and hormonal disruption. Vitamin D alone has a profound impact on oral health and cavity prevention. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine, DOI, 10.3390/EDCM8122121, confirms the critical role of vitamin D in enamel strength, immune function, and preventing tooth decay. Nanohydroxyapatite, a biomimetic mineral that mirrors natural tooth structure, outperforms fluoride in remineralization in multiple studies and does so without neurotoxic risks. So why did fluoride become the default answer? Not because it's the safest or most effective option, but because it was the cheapest solution for industries drowning in toxic waste. The deeper you look into the history of fluoride, the clearer the deception becomes. Aluminum companies saved millions by selling fluoride waste instead of disposing of it. Fertilizer companies saved millions more. Chemical corporations and nuclear contractors benefited as well. Fluoridation turned a massive pollution liability into a profitable public health initiative. Dentistry, separated from medicine decades ago, never revisited the origin story. The dental curriculum repeated outdated information from the 1940s and 1950s. Few dentists ever saw the classified documents, the Manhattan Project memos, or the suppressed toxicology reports. What began as wartime industrial protection slowly evolved into unquestioned dental doctrine. And so for decades, fluoride was sold as progress, as science, as protection. But the documents buried in archives, the suppressed toxicology research, the modern neurodevelopmental studies, and the forgotten environmental disasters, all tell a very different story. A story of industry. A story of government. A story engineered in the shadows. This is Forbidden Medicine Files. And this was the Fluoride Deception. Subscribe, because the next episode exposes an even darker chapter of hidden medical history.